My boss said, "Win the race and I'll reward you." I asked, "Anything I desire." Ships of every shape and size darted through the skyways, leaving bright streaks of light behind. This was the hub of the interstellar conglomerate, a place where the strongest, smartest, and most ambitious beings in the galaxy gathered. And Kale. He was just a human, a species the aliens often underestimated. He sighed. Humans were known for being adaptable, resilient, and stubborn, but when it came to high-stakes jobs, the aliens rarely thought of them as extraordinary. Kale had learned early that he had to work twice as hard to be taken seriously. "Kale," a sharp voice said behind him. He turned to see his boss, Zyrath, walking toward him. Zyrath was a tall, imposing alien with silvery skin and eyes that reflected the lights of the city like mirrors. Every step he took seemed to command attention. Kale straightened immediately. "Boss," Kale said, keeping his tone respectful. Zyrath stopped in front of him and studied him closely, his reflective eyes narrowing. "I have a challenge for you," he said. Kale's heart skipped a beat. Challenges from Zyrath were never simple. "A challenge?" he repeated. "Yes," Zyrath said, a faint smile curling on his lips. "The Galactic Sprint, a race through the Veil Nebula, dangerous, unpredictable, deadly for those who are unprepared." Kale blinked. He had heard stories about the Galactic Sprint. It was infamous across the galaxy. Many pilots entered, but only a few ever finished. Ships had been destroyed, careers had ended, some racers never returned, and now Zyrath was offering him the chance to compete. "Why me?" Kale asked, trying to hide the mixture of fear and excitement swirling in his chest. Zyrath leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Because I see potential in humans, adaptable, creative, determined. If anyone can surprise the galaxy, it's you." Kale's stomach tightened. The weight of the challenge pressed on him. Winning the race would not be easy. The competitors were the best pilots from countless species, many of whom had lifetimes of experience. And the prize, whatever he desired, was almost too tempting to imagine. Kale swallowed and asked carefully, "Anything I desire?" Zyrath's smile widened. "Anything, you name it." Kale could see the amusement in his boss's eyes. He knew Zyrath expected him to ask for something small, a new ship, extra resources, a promotion, something trivial, but Kale had been thinking for a long time. Humans were often overlooked, underestimated, and underrepresented in the galaxy's corporate and political spaces. This was more than a chance for personal gain. This was an opportunity to make a difference. He kept the thought to himself for now. "I'll win," he said confidently. Zyrath's smile faded, replaced by a rare look of seriousness. "I hope you do, Kale. The race begins in 3 standard galactic cycles. You have time to prepare, but not much." The next days were a whirlwind. Kale's small apartment became a workshop. Tools, schematics, and old human reference books littered the floor. He studied the course of the Veil Nebula over and over, tracing the twists, turns, and dangerous zones with his fingers. He watched recordings of past races, not just focusing on the fastest ships but on mistakes made by the pilots. Every collision, every miscalculation, every lost opportunity became a lesson. Other competitors didn't think like humans. They relied on superior technology, algorithms, and centuries of tradition. Kale knew he couldn't match them in raw power, but he could outthink them. He could improvise, adapt, and take risks that no algorithm would ever consider safe. During the day, he trained his body. Reflexes, endurance, and mental agility were all crucial in a race that demanded split-second decisions. At night, he analyzed alien tactics, learning how each species thought, how they expected others to react. And most importantly, he honed his intuition, the kind of instinct that humans had developed over millennia, surviving harsh planets, unpredictable environments, and challenges that no alien intelligence could anticipate. Kale wasn't the only one preparing. The other competitors were formidable. There was Rillen, the insectoid pilot whose multi-limbed precision made her a legend in close-quarters maneuvering. There was Tharok, the reptilian tactician who relied on brute speed and cunning traps. And then there were the Avarian twins, who had raced together for decades, anticipating each other's every move with eerie synchronization. Kale observed them all from afar, careful not to draw attention. The aliens laughed at his small, unmodified human ship, dismissing him as a minor inconvenience. That was exactly what Kale wanted. Underestimating him would be their first mistake. On the eve of the race, Kale made a final modification to his ship. He had created a small, flexible energy thruster system that allowed for sudden directional changes, something no other ship had attempted. It was risky. One miscalculation could tear the ship apart, but Kale trusted his instincts. Human creativity wasn't about playing it safe, it was about turning risk into advantage. As he looked at the ship, Kale felt a surge of confidence. He wasn't just going to compete, he was going to change how the galaxy viewed humans. The morning of the race arrived. The launch pad was buzzing with energy. Ships from every corner of the galaxy were lined up, sleek, intimidating, and ready. Kale's ship looked modest in comparison. A few aliens snickered, whispering about the human who dared to enter the galactic sprint. Kale ignored them, focusing on the course ahead. Xyrath appeared at the control tower, watching with a keen eye. Kale felt his gaze like a pressure point on his chest. He gave a small nod. Xyrath nodded back. No words were needed. The race would prove everything. A booming voice echoed across the launch platform. "Pilots, to your ships. The galactic sprint begins in 10, 9, 8. Kale strapped himself into his seat, his hands steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He checked the instruments, felt the hum of the ship beneath him, and took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1, go! Ships shot forward like comets, leaving trails of energy and light in their wake. The crowd's cheers echoed across the launch platform, but Kale blocked it out. His mind focused only on the course ahead, on the dangers of the Veil Nebula, and on the strategy that would set him apart from every other competitor. This was more than a race. It was the moment when humanity would prove it could stand among the stars, not just as workers or background players, but as pioneers, thinkers, and innovators. Kale felt a thrill of excitement. The galaxy had never seen a human pilot like him. And it would never forget. The city lights blurred as Kale's ship sped away from the launch platform, leaving a trail of sparkling energy in the cold vacuum of space. Around him, other ships surged forward like a wave of living stars. Some were sleek and enormous, armed with cutting-edge technology that could outmatch his human-engineered craft in raw speed. Others were smaller, more agile, and full of cunning designs that made them dangerous in ways Kale had to consider. Kale focused on the Veil Nebula, a swirling storm of gas and debris that awaited them ahead. He had memorized every curve, every gravitational distortion, every hazardous region. But memorization alone was not enough. The nebula was alive in its own way. Its storms shifted, its debris drifted unpredictably, and it had swallowed ships that were far more experienced than he was. He knew that the race would test not only his ship but his instincts, creativity, and courage. His first few days after Xyrath's announcement had been consumed with preparation, but now, as he soared through the outskirts of the city's orbital ring, he realized the real challenge had only just begun. Kale's first task was to understand his competitors. Unlike humans, most alien pilots relied heavily on technology. Many had AI co-pilots that calculated optimal paths through the nebula, predicting every possible danger and reaction. But Kale had no such luxury. His human instincts were his greatest weapon. He studied the past champions of the galactic sprint through holographic recordings. Each pilot had a pattern, a tendency. Rillen, the insectoid ace, was aggressive but predictable when pressured. Tharok, the reptilian tactician, relied on traps and intimidation. The Avarian twins anticipated each other's moves flawlessly, but were slow to adapt when unexpected variables appeared. Kale realized that in order to win, he could not simply rely on speed or power. He needed to exploit what the others considered a weakness: his unpredictability. Humans had a unique ability to improvise, to think creatively under pressure, and to turn disadvantages into opportunities. Kale's ship became his laboratory. Its standard design was efficient but conventional. He began modifying it with careful precision, integrating ideas from human history and technology that no alien engineer would consider. He added a flexible energy thruster system, small but capable of rapid directional shifts. It could pivot the ship in ways that alien ships could not match without risking structural damage. He designed it for risky maneuvers that required timing and instinct, trusting his reflexes over raw calculations. Next, he worked on energy management. While other ships relied on brute force to power through obstacles, Kale engineered a system that would redirect energy from one part of the ship to another instantly. It meant he could boost shields in the heat of danger, accelerate when a path opened, or divert power to thrusters to dodge debris, all without the delays inherent in alien technology. Finally, Kale prepared mentally. He practiced split-second decision, making through simulations that combined physical challenges with logic puzzles, forcing his mind to remain calm under extreme pressure. Each simulation became progressively harder, reflecting the unpredictable conditions he would face in the Veil Nebula. Despite the intensity of his preparation, Kale did not isolate himself completely. He observed the other pilots in the training zones. Many were arrogant, dismissing him outright. A few sneered at his modifications, calling them primitive or reckless. Kale ignored their words. Alien arrogance had always been a human advantage. They assumed they understood the universe, but humans saw patterns they did not, instincts they ignored, and opportunities they underestimated. One evening, Kale approached a smaller training area where several minor alien pilots were practicing. They had been overlooked by the larger competitors, dismissed as weak or irrelevant. Kale struck up a conversation, learning their strategies, weaknesses, and motivations. Over the next few days, he forged a quiet alliance. They shared insights, tips, and small technologies, helping each other refine their skills. He realized something important. The race was not just about individual skill. It was also about understanding the network of competitors, recognizing alliances, and exploiting assumptions. Humans had social intelligence that many alien species undervalued, and Kale intended to use it. The night before the galactic sprint, Kale's preparation reached its final stage. He took his ship to the outskirts of a dense asteroid field near the edge of the city's orbit. There, in near silence, he tested every system he had modified. He executed sharp turns between the largest asteroids, pushing the thrusters to their limits. He ran simulations of collisions and evasions. He intentionally created scenarios that mirrored the Veil Nebula's most dangerous hazards, from sudden gravitational shifts to unexpected debris. Every maneuver was risky, and every failure was a lesson. By the end of the night, Kale was exhausted but satisfied. His ship was ready, his mind was sharp, and his instincts were honed. He felt a quiet confidence, not arrogance, but certainty that humans had something the galaxy often overlooked: the ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to remain composed under pressure. The next morning, Kale joined the launch assembly at the orbital station. Ships from every corner of the galaxy were lined up. The air, or more accurately, the artificial atmosphere of the docking bay, buzzed with tension. Pilots adjusted their controls, ran final checks, and exchanged sharp, competitive glances. Kale's ship, modest and human-engineered, was dwarfed by the massive, technologically advanced crafts surrounding it. Some were armed with energy cannons, reinforced shields, and engines that could outpace any human creation. Kale felt the familiar mixture of intimidation and excitement. As he secured himself in the cockpit, a pair of alien pilots approached. They were laughing quietly. One of them, a tall, sleek creature with blue metallic skin, said, "You really think that tiny human ship can compete?" Kale smiled calmly. "It doesn't need to compete," he said. "It just needs to win." The alien blinked in confusion. Kale knew he had planted a seed of doubt. Humans were underestimated, and doubt could be dangerous in a high-stakes race. When the countdown began, Kale focused entirely on the course ahead. Ships surged forward as the signal flared. Energy trails lit the darkness, weaving intricate patterns as pilots jostled for position. Kale held his course, relying on instincts and small adjustments to stay in a safe yet strategic path. The first obstacle came quickly, a dense cluster of asteroids spinning unpredictably. Many competitors relied on pre-calculated paths, adjusting too slowly to avoid collisions. Kale's human reflexes allowed him to swerve in precise, unconventional ways, slipping through gaps that others thought impossible. His ship's flexible thrusters responded perfectly, and he moved ahead of several larger, more experienced pilots. As the race continued, Kale faced another challenge: gravitational eddies that twisted ships off course. Pilots panicked, their AI systems struggling to adapt. Kale, however, had practiced these exact conditions in simulations. He used small bursts of energy to counter the eddies, combining intuition with precise timing. Where others hesitated, he flowed with the forces, gaining ground steadily. By the end of the first cycle through the initial sectors, Kale had moved from an underestimated outlier to a contender. The other pilots began to notice him. Whispers spread. The human was fast, clever, unpredictable. Some laughed nervously. Others scowled, realizing that they had misjudged him. Kale felt no joy yet. The Veil Nebula was only beginning. The real dangers, the shifting gas clouds, rogue comets, and deadly energy storms, were still ahead. He reminded himself to stay focused. One mistake, one overconfidence could end everything. Back in the orbital station, spectators and corporate executives watched the race unfold through live feeds. Xyrath observed Kale closely. His eyes reflected something rare: genuine curiosity and cautious respect. Humans were underestimated in every field, but Kale's performance was forcing even the most skeptical to reconsider. Meanwhile, Kale's minor alliances proved their worth. Pilots he had spoken to earlier signaled warning paths, minor dangers, or unexpected debris. Kale responded with quick gestures, acknowledging their help while maintaining independence. It was subtle, but effective. In a race where arrogance often blinded competitors, Kale's cooperative strategy gave him an edge. As the first day of the galactic sprint drew to a close, Kale found a safe zone to rest and recharge. His ship hummed softly, systems running at optimal levels. He took a deep breath and allowed himself a small smile. The preparation had paid off. His ship was performing beyond expectations. His mind was sharp. His instincts were tuned. And the galaxy, which had long underestimated humans, was beginning to see a new possibility: that they could compete not just with technology or brute force, but with ingenuity, creativity, and courage. Kale closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of Xyrath's words, "Anything you desire." He had not yet asked for anything, but he had already decided. It would not be trivial, it would not be personal. It would be a statement, a reward that would change the way humans were seen across the galaxy. But first, he had to survive the race. And Kale knew one thing for certain: the Veil Nebula would test every skill he had, every ounce of human resilience, and every creative impulse he could summon. He opened his eyes, ready to face the second day. The real race, the part where legends were made, was about to begin. The first light of the nebula shimmered on Kale's viewport as his ship approached the Veil Nebula. It was breathtaking and terrifying. Swirling clouds of neon gas, jagged rocks floating in irregular patterns, and flashes of energy from distant storms made it look alive. Many ships ahead hesitated, adjusting their course with careful calculations. Kale, however, relied on instinct. He had trained for this, memorized simulations of every possible obstacle, and now it was time to trust himself. The hum of his ship's engines filled the cockpit. His fingers hovered over the controls, ready to adjust instantly. He felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. The galactic sprint was more than a race. It was a test of survival. One wrong move could end everything. Kale's first obstacle was a dense cluster of spinning asteroids, each moving unpredictably through the neon haze. Large ships struggled, recalculating their paths constantly, trying not to collide. Kale's ship, small and nimble, darted between the massive rocks. His flexible thrusters allowed for sudden pivots that no other pilot could match. He could feel the wind of space, not literally, but the pull and push of gravity from each massive rock guiding his decisions. "Come on," he whispered, weaving expertly between the largest obstacles. A comet streaked dangerously close. He angled his ship, using the thrusters to ride the shockwave of the comet's passage like a skilled surfer riding the sea. It was risky, but Kale's instincts told him it would work. And it did. He emerged from the cluster ahead of several larger competitors, earning a brief flicker of surprise from the other pilots. The first few sectors were a test of patience and precision. Kale observed how other pilots reacted to each challenge. Rillin, the insectoid ace, was fast but reckless. She relied on sheer agility to dodge danger, leaving gaps in her strategy that Kale noticed immediately. Tharok, the reptilian tactician, tried to intimidate competitors by taking aggressive shortcuts that were impossible for others to follow. Many failed, crashing into debris or stalling in dangerous currents. Kale's advantage was human adaptability. He did not follow the same patterns every time. He improvised with every new obstacle. Where others saw chaos, he saw opportunity. A small tunnel of debris, he went through it. A sudden energy storm, he used it to push his ship forward, taking competitors by surprise. By the end of the first few hours, Kale had passed more than half of the leading ships. The whispers in the racing channels began to grow. The human might actually compete. Even the Avarian twins exchanged concerned glances, realizing that their careful, synchronized strategy had overlooked something unpredictable, a human mind that could think beyond patterns. As Kale moved deeper into the Veil Nebula, the dangers intensified. A sudden gravitational eddy pulled his ship sideways, spinning him dangerously close to a jagged rock formation. His ship's energy thrusters screamed in response. Kale's hands moved instinctively, adjusting power, tilting, and pivoting. He remembered a simulation where a similar eddy had destroyed multiple ships. This time, he let instinct guide him. With a sharp twist, Kale rode the eddy like a wave, spinning around the rocks and launching himself into open space beyond. The energy trails of other ships showed many were not so lucky. A loud alarm beeped in his cockpit as his shields absorbed minor debris hits. Kale smiled. He was learning with every move, adapting faster than anyone expected. Hours passed, but Kale barely felt the exhaustion. The thrill of the race, the constant pressure, and the adrenaline kept his mind sharp. He began to notice patterns in the nebula itself. Gas clouds moved in regular but unpredictable pulses. Small meteors followed certain paths influenced by gravitational shifts. Kale mentally mapped these, using them to predict safe passages faster than his sensors could calculate. Then came the first major hazard, the Razor Fields. A massive expanse of floating metal shards, torn from ancient ships, rotated slowly in the nebula's currents. Many competitors slowed down to calculate safe paths. Kale, trusting his instincts, accelerated. He weaved through the razor-sharp debris, each movement calculated yet improvisational. A shard struck the side of his ship, denting the hull but leaving critical systems intact. He didn't flinch. Pain wasn't real here, only survival mattered. Emerging from the razor fields, Kale noticed something unexpected. Rillin was behind him, fast but struggling. Her ship had been damaged by debris, forcing her to slow down. Kale's pulse quickened, not with fear but with excitement. He had gained an advantage, but he also knew the race was far from over. The real dangers were ahead. Next came the energy storms. Pulses of ionized gas created invisible barriers, tearing at ships, shields, and scrambling navigational systems. Many pilots froze, unsure how to proceed. Kale relied on both training and instinct. He adjusted his shields dynamically, directing energy away from the least threatened areas and toward critical systems. He pushed his ship into the storm, letting the unpredictable pulses guide him. Each surge became a boost rather than a threat. It was risky, but Kale had a gift that few aliens possessed: trust in human intuition. Where alien pilots depended on calculations and predictions, Kale trusted what he felt. The storm lashed at him, sensors flickering, but his ship twisted and surged in perfect rhythm with the chaotic energy. He emerged intact, far ahead of many of the best pilots in the galaxy. The competitors were beginning to notice. Communications channels buzzed with disbelief. "How is the human surviving the energy storms?" one pilot exclaimed. Another added, "He must have some unknown technology. No human could survive this naturally." Kale heard none of this. His focus remained on the next obstacle, the Phantom Comet Belt, a region where invisible, fast-moving comets threatened to smash into any ship that miscalculated. Kale slowed slightly, relying on careful observation and subtle sensors to detect the comet's movements. His human eyes, trained to notice even the smallest shifts, caught subtle reflections off the nebula's gas clouds. He predicted each comet's path and slipped between them with uncanny precision. A comet exploded near him, showering fragments in all directions. Kale twisted his ship, dodging shards that would have destroyed many larger ships. By the time he emerged from the belt, he realized something incredible. He had moved into the top 5 positions. For a human, a species often underestimated, this was unheard of. Even the Avarian twins were forced to acknowledge him silently. The final sector of the first stage approached. The Void Maw, a massive space anomaly that had destroyed more ships than anything else in the race's history. Its center pulsed with chaotic energy, swallowing ships that ventured too close. Many pilots slowed, relying on AI calculations and rigid strategies. Kale, however, trusted his instincts. He had trained for this moment. He adjusted the thrusters dynamically, allowing the ship to respond instantly to the anomaly's unpredictable pull. He took a calculated risk, diving closer to the maw than anyone else dared. The gravitational forces tugged at his hull, threatening to crush it. His energy shield strained, warning lights flashing. Kale ignored them, relying on instinct and reflex. With a sudden burst of power, he shot through the anomaly's outer edge, spinning in a precise arc to avoid the center. The Void Maw tried to pull him back, but Kale's improvisation worked. He emerged on the other side, exhausted but victorious. Only a few other pilots had survived the same maneuver, and Kale had done it faster, gaining precious distance. As Kale took a moment to steady himself, he noticed something remarkable. The nebula seemed to respond to his instincts. Subtle currents that could have crushed ships now acted as guides, helping him navigate through chaos. It was not magic, nor alien technology. It was the product of human perception, creativity, and courage. The galaxy had never witnessed such adaptability in a human pilot. Kale realized the truth. The galactic sprint was not just a test of technology or experience. It was a test of ingenuity, intuition, and courage. And humans, underestimated for centuries, had an advantage no alien could predict. By the end of the first stage, Kale's position was remarkable. Out of dozens of competitors, he had climbed into the top three. His ship, though small and seemingly fragile, had performed beyond expectations. His human intuition, adaptability, and careful planning had turned risk into opportunity. Zyreth watched from the control tower, his reflective eyes widening slightly. He had expected Kale to survive, perhaps even perform decently, but not like this. The human's creativity, courage, and instinct had already challenged centuries of prejudice. Kale knew the race was far from over. The Veil Nebula had many more secrets to reveal. More dangers lay ahead, each one testing the limits of skill, endurance, and strategy. But for the first time, he felt a surge of confidence. Humans had something no alien could replicate: adaptability, intuition, and the courage to face the impossible. The galactic sprint had begun, and the galaxy was about to witness the rise of a human pilot who would change the way every species saw humanity. Kale took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning." The Veil Nebula had revealed its fury. Kale's ship, small yet resilient, moved with agility through the swirling chaos. The nebula was alive with hazards, raging storms, jagged asteroids, and sudden energy surges that could tear a ship apart in seconds. The galactic sprint was no longer a simple test of speed. It was a crucible of skill, creativity, and courage. Kale's instincts, honed through rigorous preparation, guided him through the ever-changing environment. The Void Maw was behind him, its pull fading as he accelerated toward the next sector, the Ion Rift. Lightning-like bursts of ionized gas crackled through space unpredictably. Most competitors relied on shields and AI guidance to navigate it. Kale, however, trusted his instincts, reading the subtle glow of the plasma currents to find openings. The first rift jolted him. An energy spike slammed into his shields, warning lights flashing violently. Kale twisted his ship with a fluid motion, letting the thrusters compensate for the force. He rode the next pulse like a wave, using the nebula's chaotic energy to boost his speed. For a brief moment, he was ahead of every major competitor. Behind him, chaos erupted. Rillen, the insected ace, tried to push through aggressively but miscalculated a surge. Her ship spun wildly, narrowly avoiding destruction. Tharok and the Avarian twins worked together, coordinating their movements to block openings and trap rivals. Kale observed them with careful focus, recognizing that their combined tactics were dangerous if he acted predictably. Kale's advantage lay in unpredictability. While alien pilots relied on fixed strategies, Kale improvised, shifting his path and maneuvers at the last second. He saw patterns in their coordination, how they anticipated each other, where they expected him to go. He used that knowledge to slip past, exploiting their assumptions and gaining precious distance. The Ion Rift ended abruptly as Kale entered a calm zone, a rare pocket of relative safety. He allowed himself a moment to catch his breath. Around him, debris floated silently, remnants of ships less fortunate than he. His sensors picked up distant ships, most struggling to recover from the rift's dangers. Kale's pulse quickened, but it was not fear, it was anticipation. The final sectors of the nebula would be the deadliest. Ahead lay the Gravestone Field, a region filled with massive floating rocks that had fallen from shattered planets. Their irregular rotations created deadly whirlpools of gravitational pull. Many pilots slowed to calculate safe paths. Kale, trusting intuition, accelerated. His ship twisted and turned with precision, weaving between the rocks as if dancing with danger itself. A sudden pull tugged at his hull. Kale adjusted instantly, diverting power to the thrusters and redirecting shields to absorb minor impacts. One jagged rock scraped along the side of the ship, leaving a small dent but sparing the main systems. Kale exhaled slowly. He had survived and he had gained more distance from the others. The Gravestone Field tested more than skill, it tested courage. Many pilots hesitated, fearful of the next obstacle. The Singularity Veil, a swirling mass of dark energy with gravitational anomalies that distorted perception and navigation. Ships that entered without precise planning risked being crushed, spun apart, or lost forever. Cale paused briefly at the edge. His human instincts, honed over years of observation and training, told him that hesitation was as dangerous as reckless action. He focused on the subtle cues, the shimmer of distant gas, the faint gravitational shifts, and the small arcs of energy that suggested safe passages. With a controlled burst of energy, he dove into the veil. His ship twisted unpredictably, dodging invisible forces that pulled at him from every angle. Sensors flared and warnings screamed, but Cale relied on instinct. The Singularity tried to push him off course, but his human intuition turned every threat into opportunity. He spun, slid, and surged through the anomaly, emerging on the other side ahead of nearly all other competitors. Cale's success did not go unnoticed. Pilots behind him whispered in disbelief. "How is the human surviving the Singularity Veil?" one asked. Another muttered, "It's impossible. No human could anticipate the anomalies like that." Cale heard nothing. He did not need validation. Every movement was focused on survival and strategy. Yet Cale knew the race was far from over. The final stage of the nebula awaited, the shadow currents, a labyrinth of plasma and gravitational distortion that had ended countless careers. Ships entered cautiously, many using advanced AI to plot safe paths. Cale had no such AI. He relied on human adaptability, improvising with every pulse, twist, and surge of the environment. The shadow currents were merciless. Plasma arcs erupted unpredictably, and gravitational currents shifted without warning. Cale's ship responded instantly to every change, thrusters pivoting, shields flexing. He dodged a plasma spike that would have destroyed many ships, spinning into a narrow tunnel between two massive rocks. The passage was so tight that even a slight miscalculation would have ended the race for him. As he navigated, Cale noticed the other pilots forming strategies to block his path. The Avarian twins attempted to coordinate a trap, while Tharok tried to cut off potential openings. Cale anticipated them, using subtle feints and sudden maneuvers to slip past, exploiting their expectation that humans could only react predictably. It was here, in the chaos of the shadow currents, that Cale's true advantage became evident. Human creativity under pressure was not just a skill, it was a weapon. He turned each obstacle into an opportunity, each danger into a way forward. Where the aliens relied on logic, he relied on imagination. Where they hesitated, he acted. And it worked. Suddenly, a massive energy surge erupted from the nebula, sending waves of gravitational distortion through the currents. Ships were flung sideways, some colliding with debris, others spinning uncontrollably. Cale felt the pull on his hull but did not panic. He remembered a simulation where a similar surge had destroyed multiple ships. Timing, anticipation, and instinct were key. He twisted his ship sharply, diverting power to shields just enough to absorb minor impacts. At the same time, he used the surge to propel forward, gaining speed while competitors struggled to recover. The wave passed, leaving him ahead of nearly every major competitor. Cale's heart raced. He was exhausted, but adrenaline and focus kept him alive. The race had become a mental battle as much as a physical one. Every decision mattered. One mistake, one hesitation, and the nebula would claim him like it had claimed so many others. As the shadow currents finally cleared, Cale found a narrow corridor leading to open space. He took a moment to survey the competitors around him. Rillan, Tharok, and the Avarian twins were still in the lead pack, but the distance he had gained gave him an advantage. For the first time, Cale felt a spark of true confidence. He knew the nebula had more dangers ahead, but he also realized something else. Human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability were giving him an edge no alien pilot had anticipated. He could win this race, not just survive, but triumph. The final sector of the nebula approached, the gravity spine, a narrow path between massive planets, each emitting irregular gravitational fields. One misstep here would end the race. Kale prepared, studying the subtle gravitational shifts and energy flows. His ship was ready, his mind sharp, his instincts tuned. As Kale entered the gravity spine, he noticed something unexpected. Tharok had set up a trap using gravitational anchors, trying to push competitors off course. The Avarian twins moved in tandem to block potential exits. Kale smiled slightly. They expected predictability, and he was anything but predictable. Using a sudden burst from his thrusters, he angled his ship in a way no algorithm could calculate. He twisted around Tharok's anchors, slipped between the twins, and surged forward. His ship's flexible energy thrusters responded perfectly, absorbing the irregular pulls and redirecting momentum to accelerate him. Emerging from the gravity spine, Kale finally allowed himself a small, triumphant smile. He had survived the deadliest part of the Veil Nebula, and he had done it not through brute force, but through creativity, courage, and human ingenuity. At the edge of the nebula, a safe zone awaited where ships could rest, repair minor damages, and prepare for the next stage. Kale drifted into the zone, exhausted but exhilarated. His ship had minor dents and scratches, but every system was intact. He had passed obstacles that had destroyed many top-tier pilots. Zyrath's holographic message appeared on Kale's display. "Impressive, Kale," it said. "You have survived what most cannot. Your human instincts are remarkable, but the race is far from over. The real challenge is ahead." Kale nodded to himself. He did not need encouragement. He knew that humans were underestimated, and he intended to prove that adaptability, creativity, and courage could outperform any alien advantage. The galactic sprint had revealed the true value of human ingenuity. Kale's performance had already challenged centuries of assumptions. The galaxy was beginning to notice, and the story of a human pilot thriving in impossible conditions was spreading faster than he had imagined. Kale exhaled deeply. The race was not over, but he was ready. The Veil Nebula had tested him, but he had emerged stronger, sharper, and more determined than ever. The turning point was behind him. Now, the final battles, the ultimate challenges, and the chance to claim victory awaited. He gripped the controls tightly and whispered, "Let's finish this." Kale emerged from the Veil Nebula into open space, the stars stretching infinitely ahead. The safe zone behind him was a distant memory, and the final leg of the galactic sprint loomed, the void expanse. It was a vast stretch of uncharted space, filled with rogue comets, energy anomalies, and gravitational distortions. Many had called it the deadliest sector of the race. This was where legends were made or destroyed. Kale tightened his grip on the controls. He was exhausted, both physically and mentally, but every obstacle he had overcome had prepared him for this moment. His instincts, sharpened by hours of training and countless dangers, guided him. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, but he was about to show that human ingenuity and courage could surpass even the most advanced technology. Ahead, the other top competitors were visible. Rillen's insectoid ship gleamed with raw speed, while Tharok and the Avarian twins moved in perfect synchronization. They had recovered from previous setbacks and were determined to reclaim the lead. Kale knew they would not yield easily. But he had learned their weaknesses, observed their tendencies, and perfected strategies that no alien mind could anticipate. The void expanse was unpredictable. Massive rogue comets drifted slowly but could be deadly if misjudged. Energy pulses from distant storms flickered across the darkness, sometimes harmless, sometimes lethal. Kale relied on his human intuition, reading subtle changes in light and gravitational pull that no AI could detect. The first test came almost immediately. A rogue comet, nearly the size of a small planet, drifted directly into the path of the leading pilots. Many adjusted using pre-programmed calculations, slowing dangerously and risking collision with debris. Kale, however, used his ship's flexible thrusters to pivot sharply, riding the comet's outer gravitational pull. With a sudden surge, he catapulted forward, gaining precious distance while others struggled to react. The energy anomalies came next. Flashes of blue and violet streaked through space unpredictably. Some ships lost shields or suffered minor hull damage. Kale twisted his ship instinctively, letting the energy flows guide him rather than resist them. It was risky, one miscalculation and he could have been destroyed, but the thrill of improvisation was what humans did best. Rillin's ship lurched violently, sparks flying as her shields absorbed a direct strike. She glared at Kale, realizing he had not just survived, he was ahead. Tharok hissed in frustration, attempting another trap, while the Avarian twins tried to flank him from both sides. Kale smiled faintly. They assumed predictability, and he was anything but predictable. The void expanse was more than a test of skill, it was a battle of psychology. Kale observed the subtle hesitations of his competitors. Where fear slowed them, confidence propelled him. Where caution limited them, his adaptability allowed for opportunity. He moved unpredictably, a human in a galaxy of calculable minds, and it gave him an edge. A sudden gravitational pulse from a nearby star threatened to pull ships into a deadly orbit. Many competitors panicked, their AI systems struggling to compensate. Kale angled his ship perfectly, using the pulse to slingshot forward while avoiding the deadly pull. The others had miscalculated, and Kale gained a significant lead. Yet the final hazard was approaching, the coronal rift, a massive energy storm that spanned thousands of kilometers. Pilots had two options: risk going through the center, where speed could save them but danger was immense, or take a long detour, losing precious time. Kale analyzed the storm, feeling its pulse, noticing subtle gaps in the energy flows. He made his decision. Straight through the center. The storm was violent. Plasma arcs licked at his shields, gravitational currents tugged unpredictably, and sensors flickered from intense energy interference. Kale relied solely on instinct, letting his human perception guide him. He dodged, twisted, and surged through the storm, turning every destructive pulse into a path forward. His ship shuddered under stress, but it held. Emerging from the storm, Kale was exhilarated. He had not only survived but thrived. The other competitors had taken detours or suffered minor damages. Kale's unpredictable maneuvers had saved time and energy, placing him clearly in the lead. The finish line appeared in the distance, a beacon of shimmering energy marking the end of the galactic sprint. Kale's pulse raced. Every hour of preparation, every risky maneuver, and every moment of courage had led to this point. He had faced dangers that would have destroyed most pilots, yet he had not faltered. The nebula, the rogue comets, the energy storms, all had been tests of skill, courage, and ingenuity. He accelerated, pushing his ship to the limits. Behind him, competitors tried to catch up, but Kale's improvisation, adaptability, and instinct allowed him to maintain a decisive lead. He could almost feel the astonishment of the alien pilots, the disbelief that a human had survived, adapted, and now dominated the race. Finally, Kale crossed the finish line. A wave of relief, exhaustion, and triumph washed over him. The crowd of spectators, watching via holofeed across the galaxy, erupted in astonishment. Few had expected a human to reach the finish line, let alone in first place. Xyrath's image appeared on Kale's display. His reflective eyes shone with a rare expression of genuine admiration. "Kale," he said slowly, "you have done the impossible. You have not only survived the galactic sprint but mastered it. I am impressed. Kale allowed himself a small smile. He had not just proven himself as a pilot, he had proven something far greater, the potential of humans when underestimated, challenged, and pushed to the extreme. The announcement of the victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Humans, often dismissed as average, were suddenly recognized as formidable competitors. Kale's triumph became the talk of corporate hubs, research stations, and even interstellar governments. Stories of his daring maneuvers spread like wildfire, but Kale's mind was not on fame. He remembered Xyrath's promise, anything you desire. This was more than a personal reward. It was a chance to make a statement, to shift the way humans were treated across the galaxy. Kale requested a private audience with Xyrath. The alien executive appeared, expecting a request for a personal prize, a larger ship, wealth, or a promotion. Kale's human eyes gleamed with determination. I want something different, he said. I want equal opportunities for all humans in the conglomerate. Leadership positions, access to elite resources, and recognition of our potential. Not just for me, but for every human who wants to prove themselves. Xyrath's eyes widened. Few humans had ever asked for anything other than personal gain. And yet, Kale's victory proved that humans were capable of extraordinary feats. He had earned the right to make such a demand. After a long pause, Xyrath nodded slowly. Very well, Kale. Your request is granted. Humans will have a seat at the table. Their potential will no longer be underestimated. The ripple effect was immediate. Human pilots and workers across the galaxy received recognition, promotions, and new opportunities. Corporations, governments, and scientific communities began to reevaluate human contributions, realizing that they had overlooked a species capable of incredible ingenuity and courage. Kale's victory became legendary, not just for his daring maneuvers in the galactic sprint, but for the statement it made. Humans were adaptable, courageous, and capable of achievements no alien had anticipated. Kale had proven that being underestimated could be turned into an advantage, and creativity under pressure could surpass brute strength or superior technology. In the days that followed, Kale's life changed dramatically. He became a symbol of human potential. New recruits looked to him as an example of what determination, preparation, and ingenuity could achieve. Aliens who had once dismissed humans now studied their methods, hoping to understand the secret of their unpredictability and creativity. But Kale remained humble. He had won not because he was stronger or faster, but because he had trusted human instinct, worked tirelessly, and used ingenuity in the face of danger. He knew the galaxy had more challenges ahead, but for now, he had proven a vital truth. Humans were extraordinary. Xyrath visited Kale one last time, placing a hand on his shoulder. You have changed the galaxy's perception of your species, he said. Do you understand what you have done? Kale smiled. Yes, and this is only the beginning. He looked out at the stars, thinking of the vast unknown waiting beyond. The galactic sprint had tested his limits, pushed him to the edge, and revealed the true strength of human adaptability. And he knew that wherever humans went in the galaxy, their courage, creativity, and ingenuity would leave a lasting mark. Kale's story became more than a race victory, it became a legend. The tale of a human who defied expectations, overcame impossible odds, and demanded not just personal reward but recognition for an entire species. Humans would never again be underestimated, and the galaxy would never forget the pilot who had turned ingenuity and courage into history.